Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm your friend Insect. So for now, as you could say, I got a pretty face. I don't know, but I think I got a very cool haircut right now. It's actually not a haircut. It's just a hairstyle that I choose to have. By doing this, I don't have to manually handle my hair. All I have to do is to put a simple, let's see. All I have to do is to put one of those simple stuff on my hair. Yeah, for example, this one. I hope you could see it clearly. Then everything's done. I don't have to waste my time to manage my hair. So this is a win for me if I don't have to spend time on that. Alright, back to our topic. So what I'm gonna do today, why I recorded this video? Well, because I have to finish a task that I left before. There I have a project called Freedom, and this project was supposed to be published a long time ago, but I got rejected. As you could say, I got rejected. Why? Because I got a very bad icon, which is similar to the Twitter. So that's why they refused to publish my application on the Google Play platform. But that's okay. Anyways, since the application itself, I don't think it's ready for publish. So what I'm gonna do in this video is to try to fix some bugs of that application, then try to publish it again so that I could finish this project. I guess you do not have a clear idea about what I'm doing. So I'm going to run it in the iOS simulator, so you could say the application in a more humanic way. You know what? I always thought it's a time wasting for the Xcode to successfully build the application. It takes really a lot of time, almost 1 or 2 minutes. That could drive you crazy if you want to debug it sometimes. Okay, now I am pretty sure I made some mistakes for this application. Otherwise, it will start successfully. So where is the problem? If we look at the main function, we would notice that it's initialized successfully. After the initialization, it calls the initialization function. Okay, here's the problem. We don't know if this function stops our whole application. So, oh, sorry guys, I got it. So this application is meant for the Android. That's why I created it. And one of its dependencies, or some of its dependencies, will not work on the iOS side. So that's why we get it stuck here. Yeah, how can we solve this problem? Well, we may need to run an Android simulator instead of the iPhone. Okay, so for doing that, first we will need to open the Android Studio. It may take some time. Then we're going to go to the AVD manager. Alright, for now, as you could say, we got no virtual devices was enabled out there. So we need to create a new virtual device. For this case, you can choose. There are indeed a lot of different options that you could choose. But I'll just choose the Pixel 2 XL version. Alright, then I'll hit the next button. And let's say here we got so many different Android version to choose. Well, for this case, I'll just choose a Q version. You could choose a R. It depends on your needs. Okay, after it's done, we click the Finish button. And we should have one system available. Then we hit the next button. After that, I guess everything would be fine for using those default settings. Then we'll just hit the Finish button. Now we got our Android virtual device available. After that, what you have to do is to click the play button, or what do they say? They say launch. So click the launch button. It will starting the simulator for you. Yeah, I don't know why. When I click the OK, nothing really happened. How about we click the don't allow, but still not working? That was stupid. I guess the simulator does not require the microphone kind permission. So I'll go to the security, and let's say we're gonna go to the microphone. There, I do not see the Android Studio anywhere. That's weird. So we will just hit the don't allow. Still not working. So let's leave it there. Okay, despite of we have this stupid window here, we got the Android device right in there. We successfully launched a virtual Android device. Alright, after that you should see something like this. This when you see this screen, that just means that we have everything ready. Now what you need to do is to go to the Android SDK build whatever at the right button side, yeah, and you click it, you select the Pixel 2, that's the Android device that you have. Then we press F5 to launch the whole application. Right, I guess it takes me so long. Alright, after 3 minutes, finally we got our application installation here. Alright, finally, it shows up after so many troubles. Well, it's just as simple as when you hit this add button, it will show up a window, and from there you could do some typing. For example, you could say, "Hi, my name is InsightXO." Then if I want, I even can pick a picture. Alright, I indeed could pick a picture. But it seems like we do not have a picture anyway. That could be a problem. So anyway, let's just save this message. Okay, after the saving, we should say something like this. "Hi, my name is InsightXO." Then we could somehow edit this if we double click this message. Okay, then after that we could let's say add another sentence. "Surprise." Then we could save it again. After the saving, we should still see one message. Then let's go to the camera. I just wanna okay, so I just wanna take some pictures so that I could use later. So this is the first picture, and can I move around for a little bit? Okay, we could move around. Let's take 2 pictures out there. Okay, after that we go back. Go back to our application. For now, I just add another picture. Oh, sorry, another. Whatever you say, you could say it's a message, or you could view it as a diary content, whatever you think. So I would say I said hello to you. Now take a picture from the photos. But now we indeed have 2 items, and we could choose one of them. We say done. Yeah, after that as you can see, we got a picture right in there. Then we could hit the save button. Dun dun. Now we got another message. And one thing good about this is that when you click the messaging, you could be able to see the whole picture without any problem. Alright, then we got a search table. Inside of this table, we could search for the value. For example, as you can see, for now, you can see all of those messages, but if I set a filter as hello, now you can only see 1 messages out there. So it's happening in real time. The searching was happening in real time. Alright, then we could go to the menu. In the menu, we could say a national flag. I won't tell you why I put a US flag in here, because as you know, I won't tell you why. Then if we go to the setting page, we could say something like this. Although you say there are a lot of buttons, but I think the most important one, or most important 2 buttons, is the export button and import button. When you hit the export button, it's supposed to export all of your data from this application to your local storage. Then when you hit the import button, you should be able to import your backup data back into our application. I guess that's the functionality for the 2 buttons. But when I put this into my real phone and my real data, I almost got 3 years of my, no, not 3 years, probably 10 years of my diary data. And when I put it into this application, something bad was happened. If we go to the dependencies, you would generally notice that I have used a patch called SQF-letter, but that's not the real LAN. The real LAN for that database is called SQL-letter. So when I put my 10 years of data into the SQL-letter database, a bad thing just happened. What? I found that if your image if your image is bigger than, let's say, 3 MB or even 10 MB, I don't know the exact number, but if your image data was bigger than that, then if you save it as a string into that database table, then an error would erase. It would say that you cannot save that big string into that database, and then we get fucked. Okay, here as you could say, I created a database with a content of data with a content of that content and images. All of them have a type of text. And when I put the images into this database, the database was blown up. So we made a mistake. I should never use the SQL-led database or the traditional relational database to save the image or to save any field. That's a mistake I made. So to be able to in order to let our application works again, what we should do is to change the whole database from the traditional database into a more flexible one. For example, I was thinking that maybe I could just use a JSON file to save that. To save our data, and I think that will definitely not blow up if I put a very long string into it. Okay, so this is also why for most applications in your mobile, this is why for most of the case, your application need a server to actually save your data instead of saving everything inside of your phone. Well, it's basically because they cannot do that. But if you put your data into the server program will handle your file. They will try to split that file into different parts, then save it to the database, or just save that file into the server storage somewhere as a file. Then when you read that file, you do a request, then the server will send that file piece by piece in the bits unit to your phone. Anyway, I think for now, it's definitely not a good idea to save everything inside of our mobile phone because for the one side, the mobile phone doesn't have that much storage. For the second reason is that it has a very low performance. If you put let's say 10 or 20 years of data into your mobile phone, it's very hard to read it back. It probably will take a lot of time, especially if you have some big file and you convert it into a base64 string. That would be a nightmare. Okay, so enough talking, let's just fix this. That's the reason why I recorded this video, because I always find myself be productive when I record my video. Well, why? Because when I record my video, I will generally do the speaking, and when I speak, I was output my thoughts in a very smooth way. So the speaking was an alternative for the thinking, and I could speak without using my brain. It's just very natural. But if I do the thinking, it would make me feel tired sometimes. I don't know if you have this feeling too. For example, if you are very tired, you can almost cannot. You probably at that time you won't be able to think, right? But you can always be able to speak because you can speak without thinking. Am I correct? So anyway, back to our topic. We're gonna make this right. So at the beginning, we got a main function, and inside of this main function, we ensure the flatter was initialized. After that, we call our own initialization function. All right, let's get into there. Let's see how can we change it for a little bit. And for the initialization function, here we just call another function called initialize the database. Well, then we need to get into that function. So inside of this function, let's say what we did. First, we try to open a database, and let's say if that database was not exist, then we create that database with three properties inside of that, or if you prefer, you could call it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they call it clone with 3 clones inside of that. Alright, so how can we change it to another stuff? So instead of the database, we're gonna change it to something else. Well, let's say if we want to do that, we first need to know how to write a text into a field in the Flutter. So Flutter, sorry, that's not the right way to do a search. We should say this: how to write text file into storage in Flutter. Alright, then we got it. The first link is what we need, or let's say the first link point out the website that we would need, and that website contains some information that we would use later. So at the beginning, we need to find the correct local path. That's probably, I don't know if it's easy or not. Here, as you could say, we have a function called getDatabase file path. Let's get into it. Okay, so for this file, it will actually return you something. We're gonna do some modification about it. Let's say for now it has no errors. That was a miracle. All right, after we get the directory, actually we need a string path, so we will return it in a different way. We would first return the directory path, then we will add that path by this. We're gonna say database.johnson because that's a file that we will be using. Okay, so let's go back. How can we go back? Well, we could go to the go, and here we got it back. All right, enough playing. So by using this command, we could get our Johnson database path, the path of our Johnson file. But by only having that, it's not enough. For now, we got a string type, the Johnson. We can call it the Johnson database path. All right, that's the first command that we have. Then what else would happen? We get the dir, we get something like that. What was this? Oh, here it is a bug. Oh, sorry. There has a package called have. We could use this package to save some configurations. For now, it's working fine, so I do not need to change that anyway. So let's leave it there. That's probably fine. We don't care about that. What's more important is our Johnson file. So at the first, we need to make sure that this field exists. If it's not, we're gonna create a new one. So here comes another function or another need. How to check if a file exists in Flutter. Here we go. This is a stuff that we would need for sure. So let's say if that Johnson whatever path was indeed exists, then we do something. All right. Okay, I guess that's not very intuitive. Let's say we're gonna create a new value called field exists. Yes, and after that we're gonna assign that expression into this variable, and we will say if that file does not exist, which is when it is equal to false. If it's not exist, then we will do something, right? We will try to create a new file. Yeah, so basically we could let's say write two functions, write data and read data. So I put it here. So future, I don't know, maybe it will return a value. This is a write text data to file. It's an asynchronous function, and it will have a type. If you want to write a string into a file, at first you need to at least give me a string, right? So we got a string type of text. But by only having the text, it's still not very enough. Then we need to have another one. And what kind of type you should have? You should have the type of field. So you should have a field. What kind of field you want me to write text into? And then for this function, we'll just do a try and catch. Do we? No, we don't do that, because for now we want to we want to finish this application as quickly as possible, so we don't do that. Then instead of the write text to a file function, we need to have another one, which is read text data from file. For this one, you have to get me a file for sure. Then I'm going to read it. Okay, it seems to be very stupid for us, because if you have a file object, you could always just say read as a string, then you are done. Why we do a wrap here? I don't know. But since we did that, we use that. Okay. Then what else we need to do? Okay, here we go. So we need to have that text file, right? Since we got two functions, write and read, but write what kind of content into that file? We need to have this variable. We need to have this variable specified. So back to our topic, let's say for all those messages here, as you could see, we got two messages. They share one single object, which is this one, the whole stuff. For this object, it has from string and to map function. And what our Johnson file should save is a bunch of this object inside of a last. So if it's not exist, what we need to do is first, let me say, we need to have another two functions, which is how to dumps a last into Johnson. in Flutter. Alright, here we go. So if we got a last like this, we could always use this function, Johnson encode. We could always use a Johnson encode to actually convert it into a pure string. So let's do it. So now if we got a, let's say we got a last, or the type of it would be just a last. We do not specify anything inside of that last. And I'm going to call it a last, and it's equal to an empty last. For that one, we'll just convert that last into a pure string. So we get a string called Johnson string. Then after that, we will save it into our file. So I'm gonna call write text data into a file. What kind of file? Well, we could just say file with the file path, which is a Johnson database path. Yeah. After that, we're gonna save the Johnson string into that file. Of course, it's an asynchronous function. We're gonna call the await keyword before the whole function name. Alright, so we made it. If we do not have a file, we create a file. But what if we indeed have a file available out there? What do we do? That's a good question. Well, we'll try to load that file and put it into our controller. Let's say if you don't know what I was talking about, let me say. If it exists, we're gonna put the whole stuff, we're gonna load the Johnson content and put it into a list inside of the memory. It's a pretty simple idea. So let's read that file. We got a string variable called Johnson string. Alright, so what we need to do now? If the file does not exist, we create it. If it indeed exists, we'll read it from that file. For that case, that would be file of the Johnson database path that's read as a string. We have beautiful ways to do it, but let's say for now we'll just use the synchronous way, and we're gonna give it the encoding stuff. We're gonna say it's UTF-8. Is that right? No, it's not right. So encoding dot get by len. So we got a lot of len out there, but which one to use? That's a big question. So I'm gonna search for UTF-8, and here we go. We got an encoding len called UTF-8. That's the one that we're gonna use. To be honest, I didn't know that we got so many different stuff. Back to before, all I have know is one is the UTF-8, another is this one. Okay, so I guess that's enough. But why I still got an error out there? That makes sense. So Flutter read field as string. Alright. By calling the await function, we finally got it right. Now we got the Johnson string. But what we could do to convert the Johnson string back into the last? In other words, we have to decode it. So decode Johnson in Flutter. For some people, they just want to call the Johnson encode and decode the serialized and unserialized. That's just the same thing. That's just the two different words for the same thing. Okay, so this is a function that we could use. Here we go. Johnson decode. By using that Johnson string, we could get an object, and this object, to be honest, it's was that a message last or not? I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. Oh, here we go. We need to we indeed need it to be a map or last, or yeah, it should be a last. Why we get a map out of there? That makes sense. Okay, so instead of a map, we'll get a editable stuff from that function. I just do a copy. So in the Flutter, instead of any, the type of any, here we go, instead of the type of any, they do this same stuff. They have another word called dynamic, but it just does the same thing as the keyword any. So if you don't know what what kind of type it should be, you just put the dynamic in there. So here we got a list of messages. So I'm going to call it messages. Oh, wait a minute. Was that correct? So first we need to decode it. Alright, so here, first we need to decode that Johnson string. After that, we do a loop for the last. This is the last. And for each map, or for each object, or you could call it map object. For each map object, inside of that last, we're gonna call this, we're gonna call message.fromJohnson. Why? Because here I have defined a function called fromJohnson inside of our message object. What it does is to take that map object and do something. For example, we just wanna decode those images back into the base.txt or something like that. Then we put it back into our message object inside of the memory. It's kind of if you are a new beginner in the programming, it's probably very hard for you to understand what I was talking about. But it's fine. If you do not understand this video, please find another one, because this is not on your level. Okay. So now we got a list of dynamic kind of stuff. If we did such a thing, if we did a map, then this list shouldn't be a dynamic object. To be honest, it should be something else. For example, the messaging. Alright, I feel pretty good about it. For now, since we got all those data, what we need to do is to put those data into the real, let's say the real message list. So what I'll do here is just say message list dot clean or clear, or we could do it in a different way. Let's just say clear. I don't care. So first we clear out the older data, then we say message list that add all. We're gonna add all those messages into this object. Okay, so this is a initialization part of our database. Now we have changed it from the SQL database into a pure JSON file. Then we're gonna do something else. Okay, so here we go. So for now, since we do not have the database available, what I'm gonna do is to just comment it out so that we could say how many functions we're using it before. Then we could just remove those reference or calling from our code base. And after we have solved all those read bugs or read line of code, then we will be done. For this one, export Johnson data, we will just comment it out for now because it's not important for us for now. Then what else? Oh, here we go. Insert messaging. If we got a new message we want to insert it into our database, how can we do that? Well, instead of doing the old way, we're gonna do it in a new way, which is, let's say, whoever called this function. We're gonna go to the references. Okay, when we hit the save button, it will call this function, insert a messaging. Alright, so if that's true, for now what I'm gonna do is call the message list dot push, add. Okay, so we're gonna add that message into our memory object. After that, we're gonna call a function called, let's say, save memory data to JSON file. That's a new function that we will create. So here we go. Future void save memory data objects, or save memory message list into a file or into the JSON file. And for this function, it does not require any arguments or properties. And what it does is, first it had to get the message list. Then it needs to get the value, because for the message list, it's a RX list. That's a type that was used by a dependencies of my project. It's called OBX. But we will not use that. We will use the value, which is just a pure list of messaging. Okay. And what we need to do is to convert it to a map. I don't know if we got this function or not. I think we got this function, but let's say what we need to do here. Alright, let me think about this. Okay, so by only having that value, it's not enough. We need to have a list of map. And I'm going to call it the data. So at the beginning, it's equal to an empty list. That's okay. Then we're gonna do a load for that. So for, I don't know, for value in, that's not right. For value inside of the message list that value. And what we need to do is to call a function to map. Alright. So for each time we add that map into our list. So that will be the data.add. After that, we would get a pure last of map. And with that, we could just do an encoding so that we could get a pure string. And then we would be able to just save it. That's perfect, right? So let's do it. After we get the Johnson string, we're gonna write that text data into a file. So first we're gonna let's say, so even for this function, it still needs a file object because we're gonna save the file into it. So alright, so what do we do here is to give it the file and the Johnson string. Alright, it's an asynchronous function, I guess. Everything was perfect for now. So now we got this function and we could use it for sure. But it's kind of inconvenient unless we put the Johnson file, unless we treat it the Johnson file pass as a constant value. So for example here, I'll just create a file and I'm gonna say late. No, that's not right. Let's do this. It's a nullable variable and I'm gonna call it Johnson file. At the beginning, it's equal to empty one, which is a non-variable. Okay. After that, we say that Johnson file equal to file or the Johnson database path. Then for every time, we would just use a global variable, which is a Johnson file. And if it's not equal to none, if it's equal to none, we return it. Why? We still got an error here. Oh, that's probably not a good idea. Alright, let's leave it there. We're gonna call that function for each time when we use it. So for each time when we insert a message into the memory last, after that we're gonna save that save our memory last into the local file. So I'm gonna call this function by giving its field path, which is a Johnson database path. But I do not think this is a good idea. This is kind of boring. So I'll just put it right in here. For each time we're gonna get the pass, then we do it directly, and we do not need any arguments for this function. Okay, so await save memory data done. So this is the insert message. Then we're going to update the update message. This time we will not use the database anyway. Instead, I'll just do a search inside of our memory list. How can we do that? Let's say, I don't know if we have a filter or not, but let me try it out. Message.filter. No, we do not have a filter. That was stupid. So for variable message in the message list, if the message.date equal to the message.date, then we will update the old message content with the new message content, and also we're gonna update the messages.images with the new message images. After all of that, we will save the memory message list again. Okay, so then let's get into another one. Delete a message. How can we delete a message? Alright, so let's say we probably get something wrong about this. For this kind of writing, we may get some problem. So instead, we will try to say message.last index where the elements that that equal to the message.that, and after we get that index, which is an integer. Okay, so if that index does not equal to -1, which is he found something that matches the condition or fulfills the condition, then or meets the condition. If he found something that meets the condition, then we will just remove that index from our list. So message list that remove that index, and we're done. After that, for the delete messages, we will use the same strategy here. It's a check about the date and the contents and the images. If it's not equal to that, then we are going to remove it. After it, we do a save. I think we are almost done. Just for one more modification, and we will finish this. Now we do not need the, let's say, the search function anyway. So I'll just comment it out. We don't need it anyway. So for the search function, we will always return the last message last dot value. For the get message, that. We will also not need that. We will just return message last dot value. Okay, I guess we're done. Because we got no warning anywhere, it seems pretty good for now. So let me say now what I'm going to do is first uninstall the old one, then try to install the new one. Alright, we got an unexpected creating again, and then we got a pure white screen. That's definitely not a good news. But after I force create and after the force create of it, and I could be able to get into it like this. Alright, then let's do a test. I'm going to say hi and hit the save button. Here we go. We got a hi message out there, and I'm going to do it again. Even add an image into it. Okay, this is what you got, and I'll say hit the save button. Now we got two messages. That seems to be correct. What if we change the data for a little bit? Okay, then we get some problem. That's fine. Now if I force stop this application and I'll try to get into it again. Here you go. We still got that message here. So it seems like we did pretty well. The only problem here we have is about the update message. Okay, I have no wondering why we got an error, because we have used a wrong function. We shouldn't call the remove at. Instead we should call something like update at, but that's not the case. So what we need to do is index message list with that index equal to the new message. That's it. We don't actually need to do anything else. That will be fine. Okay, then let me have a look at the box. I have I was wondering maybe the hive is the reason why I always cannot get the application started properly. So what I'm gonna do is to remove the hive from everywhere inside of my application. Okay, it seems like we still got this problem. The Dart isolates unhandled exception. That's pretty weird, because if we could not see the error, then we couldn't be able to solve this error. Alright, so let's say we're gonna get into the application and we force stop it. After that, we're gonna go to it again. Now we get this, right? We're gonna add another messaging. What's happened? I made an app. Then I'm going to edit the old one, and it's so great. Okay, let's save it. Now the editing works pretty well. And what I'm gonna do here is to stop it again and load it back. Okay, it's working pretty well, no problem at all. But I don't know why I cannot just start it from the VS Code directly. Anyway, this application even has another feature, which is when you click this single icon, it could delete that message. Here you go. Alright, so I guess that's probably today's video. And in the end, what I want to tell you is that instead of writing everything as a JSON file, we actually could have another solution. And let me write it down. So for example, now if you have a table, if you got an SQL table like this, you have already split it into 3 parts. Let's say the date, the content, which is the text message. Sorry, it should be the content. Alright, this is the content. Then you get the images. And for now, what we encounter is that our message may sometimes too big to be able to save as a string inside of that. So for this case, what you could do is to create another table. And for this table, you're gonna put it into 2 parts: the image ID, and the part of that string, or part of image string, whatever you call it. And for now, the magic stuff is for this image, for one slot of it, what you could save is a list of image ID. For example, 1, 2, 3. So as you could say, this image was composed by 3 parts of this of another table. For example, this is some string, and this is another string, whatever string it is. For anything, we will for example, now if we got 1, 2, 3 right in here, what you need to do is to look at this table and find the 1, 2, 3 and its corresponding image string out there, and you concatenate those strings together to form the big string. So this could be a way to work around to solve that problem. But I didn't do it because I think it's kind of boring if you have to implement all those logics by yourself. All right. So yeah. Because you know why this method is working. Well, it's because for one single DB file, it could have multiple tables. For example, this is a table and this is another table. So you could put as many tables into this DB file as possible. That you could put as much as tables as you like into the DB files. That's okay. This is the design logic for the regional database. But to be honest, I don't like that. Okay, I was more like some other database like MongoDB, and inside of such database you could just save your JSON object straight into it, and that's probably more easy for you to get started with a prototype like this one I'm working on. Anyway, I think that's today's video, and sorry, let me do it in this way. Alright, I think this is today's video, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!